Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into the hidden mechanics of buy now, pay later platforms and how they're silently draining people's bank accounts. You know the button, you're shopping online, and there it is, promising a completely pain-free way to get what you want right now without that big, immediate hit to your wallet. But beneath that really simple checkout option, there's a massive unregulated system that is fundamentally changing how we borrow money.
Section 1. The Invisible Trap.
Let's kick things off with a real story. Picture a 27-year-old graphic designer living in Austin, Texas. It's the morning of March 7th. She opens her banking app, totally expecting to see a nice, healthy cushion. She'd just been paid 2 days prior. But instead, she wakes up to a massive shock. Her app is showing a negative balance of $412. Instantly, panic sets in, right? She's aggressively scrolling through transactions, hunting for fraud, looking for a bank error, just anything that shouldn't be there. But as she scrolls, this terrible realization washes over her. Every single charge was hers. She just couldn't remember agreeing to them. Why? Because her name wasn't on some huge credit card bill or a payday loan. Instead, over 14 months, she had simply been clicking a button that said Pay in 4 on practically every online purchase. A pair of running shoes here, a desk lamp there, maybe a birthday gift. Each purchase felt so small at the time. They just kind of vanished into the rhythm of her everyday life. But here's the really terrifying part. By the time she finally sat down and added up every single active installment plan across Klarna, Afterpay, and Affirm, she owed $3,800. She genuinely thought she was avoiding debt by splitting up her payments. She thought she was being responsible, which is exactly what the checkout page implies. But in reality, she had stacked up nearly $4,000 in active debt, and she literally had no idea the number was that high until she wrote it down on paper.
Section 2. Anatomy of Phantom Debt. To understand how she and tens of millions of other Americans fell into this trap, we really need to look at how buy now, pay later actually functions once you strip away the glossy marketing. We need to look at the version that hits your bank account 6 weeks later. So the pitch sounds incredibly consumer-friendly. It goes like this. You buy something, pay 25% upfront, and the rest gets split into 3 more payments over 6 weeks. You get instant approval, absolutely no interest, and no credit check. It's like magic. It makes a $100 purchase feel like a totally harmless $25 charge. Who could possibly say no to that?
Well, regulators, for one. And they actually call this phantom debt because these Pay in 4 loans completely evade the major credit bureaus, creating this massive, invisible layer of consumer borrowing. When you tap that checkout button, no hard inquiry hits your credit report. No new account is opened on your file. Your FICO score has absolutely no clue this debt even exists. If you walked into a bank the very next morning to get a car loan, the lender would look at your file and see someone with 0 installment obligations. And guys, that's not a glitch. That is exactly how the system is designed to work. It's a crazy contrast between what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing. On one hand, there's this illusion of responsible budgeting, and on the other, the reality of a system practically built to keep you completely oblivious. Our designer in Austin had active loans on 3 different platforms all at the same time, and none of them knew the others existed. These platforms are totally blind to the fact that a user might have 10 of these loans going across 10 different websites.
Section 3. A $70 billion blind spot.
This perfectly illustrates why we need to zoom out from Austin and look at the whole picture here. We aren't just talking about a few isolated cases of someone overspending. This is a fundamental shift in our economy. According to the Richmond Federal Reserve, in 2025 alone, buy now, pay later transaction volume hit a staggering $70 billion. And this industry has been growing by about 20% every single year since 2021. That is $70 billion flowing through a parallel credit system with almost 0 regulatory oversight, no standardized reporting, and virtually none of the consumer protections you'd get with a regular credit card. And look at this data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's $45.2 billion market report. They found that the average borrower wasn't just taking out 1 loan. No, the average borrower took out 6.3 loans per lender in a single year. Now, factor in that 63% of borrowers were using multiple platforms, and the math gets super scary super fast. That means your average multiple platform user was juggling 12 to 13 separate installment plans at the exact same time. Let that sink in. So the crucial takeaway here is that people aren't replacing traditional debt with buy now, pay later. They are actively stacking it right on top. The CFPB found the average user held over $22,000 in total unsecured consumer debt, with buy now, pay later making up 17% of that.
In fact, these users carry $871 more in credit card debt than non-users, and $453 more in personal loans. People splitting purchases into 4 easy payments are definitely not avoiding debt. They're drowning in it.
Section 4. When the bill comes.
Let's look at what happens when all these overlapping payments inevitably hit your bank account at the exact wrong time. Because eventually, that invisible debt makes itself very, very known. Now, a massive 62% of users wrongly believe that buy now, pay later builds their credit score. But here's the brutal truth. You get absolutely zero credit for paying on time. Most of these providers don't report your on-time payments at all. So the upside, totally invisible. But the downside, oh, that is permanent. If you miss a payment, Klarna hits you with a $7 late fee after 10 days. Afterpay charges $8. Both of them cap these fees at up to 25% of your purchase price. And if you default entirely, they will send that straight to collections, which absolutely shows up on your credit report, scarring your record for 7 years. It is essentially a toll booth where you never get a receipt.
And folks, people are missing these payments at an alarming rate. Just look at this trend from LendingTree's annual reports. In 2024, 34% of users had made a late payment. In 2025, that jumped to 41%. And by 2026, it hit a horrifying 47%. That is a 13-point jump in just 2 years. Nearly half of all users are falling behind on payments that were heavily marketed to them as being easy and painless. But honestly, the most alarming symptom of this whole crisis is what people are actually financing now. Buy now, pay later has completely morphed from a handy little online shopping trick for shoes into a desperate survival mechanism. Nearly a third of all users, 29%, are now borrowing money just to buy groceries. And among Gen Z users, it's 38%. We're not talking about people financing a luxury vacation here. They are splitting a grocery run into 4 payments because they literally cannot afford to eat without borrowing. Section 5. The true opportunity cost. The immediate hit of late fees and overdrafts is bad enough for sure. But the real damage isn't just about penalties. It's about the silent theft of your future wealth. Let's go back to our graphic designer in Austin. She carried an average of $3,800 in debt across 14 months. If we assume she rotated in and out of plans, keeping an average rolling balance of, say, $1,900, well, if she had just invested that $1,900 into an S&P 500 index fund, earning an average 10% return, instead of tying it up in invisible debt, look at the numbers. In 30 years, it would be worth over $33,000. She didn't just lose her $3,800. She sacrificed $33,154 in potential future wealth. That is the true opportunity cost of clicking that button. Section 6. Do the math. This brings us to our final reality check. Because if you or anyone you know is currently riding this wave of phantom debt, you need to know that the landscape is about to change entirely. The CFPB failed to lock down credit card level protections. They actually withdrew their interpretive rule that would have offered basic refund protections in 2025. But FICO announced they are officially incorporating buy now, pay later data into credit scores starting in the fall of 2025. Plus, as of May 2026, Senate Democrats have started heavily pressing the major credit bureaus for answers. The invisible debt is finally becoming visible to the system. And yet, incredibly, 45% of users say they won't change their habits even if their score is affected. They've just been too well trained to believe this isn't real borrowing. The checkout button says, pay later. Notice how it conveniently never says, borrow now? The entire interface is literally designed to make you feel like you're making a smart, responsible budgeting choice. But as we've seen, the math tells a wildly different story. The whole system practically depends on you never actually doing the math. You have to take control. Stop letting these platforms make your financial decisions for you and start tracking exactly what you owe. So here is my challenge to you to wrap up this explainer. If you've used these services, I want you to open every single app today, add up every active installment you have, and write that total down on a physical piece of paper. I can almost guarantee the balance is bigger than you think. And if that number surprises you, remember, it was perfectly designed to do just that. The button says pay later, but later is now. So how much invisible debt do you actually owe? I'll see you in the next explainer.